struggling. Stop. Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Jarren's Outpost vlog. Before we get into whatever we're going to talk about today, let's just say, whoa! Whoa, holy
bravo!
Frickin' macaroni!
Congratulations to us and to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
A million billion thank yous from us to you.
I thought I was very behind on how much money we'd made.
Thank you so much for $1 million.
$1 million billion? Is there that much money in the world?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, we're doing very well for ourselves.
Going to Jarren's Outpost, the board game. It's insane.
No, genuinely, like from the bottom of our hearts, we kind of thank you enough for what everybody has pledged. It's far exceeded any of my expectations.
Yeah, 100%. It's crazy because again, I think I've mentioned this before. Maybe one of the perhaps the Sanspans Plus Discord, but it is this like. It's weird running a comedy network, like a comedy show. Like all the stuff we do is mostly comedy. It's comedy based.
Comedy,
yeah. It's because of that very nature. It's hard sometimes to either come across as genuine or to actually be like, no, genuinely, I am.
Yeah,
I've been in situations where I am being very genuine in my personal life. And it's like, yucking it all up. Like,
no, I'm being sincere
I'm being very
right
sincere
now.
right now. But yeah, so it is crazy to think like, it has surpassed our.
Well, yeah, I mean, I trusted that we'd made a good enough game, and that we had enough fans who loved what we did and wanted to support us. That when we launched, that we would get funded. Like I was like, that's a lock, okay?
Yeah.
Like I think we can get there. And then for that to happen in 4 hours, for me to go to sleep and then wake up and it's been done. I just couldn't believe it. And then I kept on being like, well, holy shit, okay, obviously there's the rush at the beginning, but it will slow down. And I mean, yes, a little bit, but it's still every day I wake up and it's going up again and it's going up again. There's still people who want to pledge.
I feel the exact same way.
Us.
Yeah, I keep expecting like to wake up and to see the number hasn't meaningfully changed and that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, it's truly crazy. How many people are still continuing to support? Like, I can't believe that.
I thought we were going to get there, like, all right, cool, we'll do, because we did a stream directly after, like, when we woke up for us. Because it launched 3 a.m. our time, so we were like, about 9 a.m. we'll do a stream. I honestly thought we'd be like, during the stream, we'd be like, hey, we've been funded.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone,
and then we'd be like, oh, we're so close, like, we just need a couple more people to pledge and we'll get funded. But we were well and truly there by the time we started the stream, which is crazy. I think the craziest thing for me, and this being a success, and I was thinking about this the day we streamed, when I was waiting for the train to go home, I was like, it's crazy that now I can say I'm a board game developer. That's a title that I legitimately have. Yeah. I can say, if I'm at a party and I meet someone, I say, what do you do? I say, oh, I'm a podcaster. Embarrassing. A humiliating experience. But if I say, and a board game developer, intriguing. Wow. And true. Like, that's the weirdest part. It's real.
Yeah.
I really have developed a board game.
Yeah, it's tangible. It's there. You can hold
it. It's happened. That's absurd. It feels crazy.
Exactly. What's that line from...
See it, touch it, taste but don't feel.
Devil's advocate.
Is that what you mean? The line from the Devil's advocate?
Are we being Al Pacino?
No, it's a line from the producers.
Yeah, look, but don't taste. Taste, but don't swallow.
Is that the one you mean?
Is that one you mean?
No, I keep trying to tell you, but you keep talking over me.
Well, look, you give us a little iota of maybe doing Al Pacino, we're going to take it.
Exactly, dude. You got to
Don't
understand.
Pacino us.
Yeah. Well, if we get Pacino'd, I mean...
If I Pacino back, can I get attention?
Yeah.
Huge ass!
Yes, Adam. What did you
huge
ass! The producers with...
you did say that.
With Matthew Broderick and with Nathan Lane.
Nathan Lane, yeah.
See it, touch it, taste it.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, that's a reference that I think a lot of people will get. I think the comments are going to be filled.
The people listening and watching, I wonder if they are more likely to be Devil's Advocate fans or Producers fans.
Let us know.
You can split the entire Sanspants listenership into 2 categories.
I was doing a stream the other day, and I was playing Doom 64.
Yeah.
And I promise this is going to be a very short tangent.
It's all good.
I was playing Doom 64, and I realized that the majority of my audience was so young they had never played any of the Dooms before, like Doom Eternal.
That's crazy, dude. We've on Thumb Cramps become kind of obsessed with trying to find a PSP. I think what are they called? UMD, which is like the videos that you could play on the PSP of Glengarry Glen Ross.
I was there when it happened.
And I know, yes, you were too. And I know every time we talk about it, that most of our listeners are like, what's this?
Who's
Glengarry Glen you gotta watch it. It's a great movie.
You know the references at least.
Oh, I know. I was being the audience.
Yeah.
I see.
Theater of the mind.
That's something I didn't get.
But no, anyway, so yeah, like genuinely from the bottom of our hearts, thank you. I mean, it's not over yet, which is also crazy.
Yeah.
2 weeks as of time of recording.
Yeah.
2 weeks still on the thing. I remember when we were doing that stream, I remember thinking to myself, man, it'd be really nice, like, if we got 50K.
Yeah.
That'd be really good. I mean, maybe we have enough time to get 50K still.
Yeah.
We're at like 64 at time of recording
which
now.
is just, it's like, I can't believe it.
And 2 weeks
it's
to go.
this kind of weird thing where you're like, yeah, cool, I know how much to get funded. And this is like, cool. To get funded was like, sweet. That means that we'll have enough to print and ship and do all that kind of stuff, which means that's fantastic. And I guess let a little bit of like, behind the scenes in terms of like how much it's going to cost and everything like that. Like, look, that was a loss sort of thing. And so it's this kind of thing of like, it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, I'm like, we've made this thing and we never made it to just, try and make money.
Yeah, I think it would be kind of heartbreaking to not have people play it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, obviously there is, you don't know, you can pretend that it's not true, but there is this element of like, well, we've invested so much time in it. To have some kind of reward, some kind of tangible reward would be amazing.
Yeah.
But really, if that doesn't happen, it doesn't really matter because what is more rewarding somehow is seeing people taking it, having a board game night and playing this thing that we've worked so hard on.
Yeah, like that's...
I don't know, this thing that we're very proud of and that we put so much time into. That's like, that kind of was the primary driving force.
I remember that moment, Joel, that you were talking about where I think we were at around 50K when we hit around that. That was when you sat down and you properly like...
went back all the years and looked at some of the invoices for all the art and all that kind of stuff.
And
I'm like,
we were sitting at about 200% funded.
Yeah.
And you were like, boys, we broke even.
It's, and it is that thing. But like, we were so ready for that not to happen.
Yeah.
And
that's
so
the
okay
kind of
with
stuff,
that not happening,
Yeah, and I think as we mentioned before, many of the things we've done, it's like, yes, it's taken 7 years to get here, and in those 7 years, so much has happened. And a lot of the artwork that we've gotten done has been within that first, 2 years of development.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of, the operational costs or whatever was kind of that's kind of already been done with. And it's kind of like my own dumb brain to be just like, well, that's gone.
Whatever, for sure, yeah.
That was eaten up when, 7 years ago. It's fine. It's all part of, the profit and loss of, a company.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I'm kind of like, yeah, whatever, who cares? And so, sure. So should I have kept track? Of course.
Yes.
But am I keeping track
correct.
now? Ish.
Yeah, enough.
Enough lessons been learned.
We're not good at learning lessons. It's not for us.
So this weird thing to be like, yeah, cool, sure, we've got and there's a lot more that went in this year, and is going in this year because again, print costs are going to be quite expensive because just that when you're printing that much and you're printing all this kind of stuff, it's going to cost something like say I want to 16K Australian, around about that in terms of just the print run. And so, all these things kind of, will cost money and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And, a lot of those things, that we've have spent money on has been, in the past. So, for me, I'm just like, it's gone. But, it was my wife who's like, hey, just maybe add up just for your own sake.
Just do the math on that,
I understand that you're excited and this is all done and you like doing this, but, just see if it is, viable, something you want to, pursue as well. I think I've mentioned one of the episodes where I'm like, I had so much fun doing this. I get when people who make... sort of either a certain genre of film. Yeah, I think Tarantino did it with or when he did after, was it Kill Bill, where he's like, cool, I really want to make a martial arts.
Yeah, because I've now done
learned so much here. I really want to go and make a martial arts film, and I kind of feel the same kind of thing now with this, which is I was feeling that way anyway before we launched because I'm like, oh, we learned so much about this. I'm really looking forward to making the next one. But say if it had tanked.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, it's day 6 and no one's pledged yet.
$100 or whatever.
Yes.
It's like,
it's kind of like a little bit. It is like external validation to be like,
Sure.
oh,
Yeah,
cool. That
absolutely.
is something that we could pursue.
Yeah.
If we wanted
and,
to.
I think there's this weird thing as well where with a podcast, just like to bring it back to even that, we get in here, like every day in a week sometimes. You do like a couple episodes and then it kind of just disappears into the ether. And then people listen to it and you can see the stats or whatever, you can look at that. But you just kind of don't, the connection between the people, all of you out there that are listening to this and doing it, sometimes it's hard to see that connection. So I think in a way it is really validating to see how quickly that we got funded to be like, oh, that's right, you're all kind of out there. You know what I mean? You have been listening and you have been following this for the last 7 years. Like you are, I don't know, I think there's something very rewarding about that.
100%.
And of course there is this idea of like, well, you got to get your internal validation from it anyway, which I think we do. But like at the same time, it's very nice to see.
It's been wonderful to wake up and just kind of like refresh and see like what's happening, to see it's just like we have stretch goals and it was like, oh yeah, maybe we'll get them, maybe we won't. I really hope we do, and then it's like, okay, we're going through them and it's fantastic. And so we're a few $100 away as of time of recording for like the next stretch goal. It's like, okay, wow, cool.
That's crazy.
I didn't think we'd be there now.
And
as you said, Adam, was like, there is still like 2 weeks to go.
A long time.
As a time of recording.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, oh, wow, okay, cool. Like, there's a chance we can, because we put so much time, energy, love into developing the extra bonus characters.
Yeah. I know, it's that thing where you're like, it would be such a shame for them not to get out there, like, because how sad, then they just sit here whatever. So it's very exciting every time somebody's unlocked. You go, oh fuck yeah, they get to play as Evelyn Plane, or fuck yeah, they get to play as Flipsham.
I remember when, I forget who, we were talking with someone about funding and stuff like that, and they asked you, what's your like moonshot, basically? What's your like, oh my god, this would be like the upper end of what you think is achievable, basically. And first of course we did the 100 million billion joke then as well. But after that you were like, kind of seriously, I guess $100,000. $100,000. You were like, that'd be
in the sky.
That'd be like,
that'd be just like, dang, man.
That is, I actually could not conceive of us making a number higher than that. That's literally like, if for some reason the government gets involved and is like, we need to fund this board game. That's how much money I imagine we'd get.
Yeah, for sure.
And I feel like right now I'm sitting here looking at 100K, and I kind of feel, if I can knock on wood. But I feel right now the same way I felt when we did the stream looking at 50K.
Oh, I guess that's like achievable. That's insane.
No, not even like that. Being like, oh man, I feel like 100K is still like, it still feels moonshotty.
Yes, okay.
Like it still feels almost out of reach. But what I'm thinking is, I'm looking back.
50 felt out of reach.
I'm looking back on that moment when I thought 50 felt out of reach, and thinking, well, I mean, like, we got the 50. I'm so cautiously, tentatively optimistic.
It is crazy to think that, like, even in my own head, I'm like, but we're not going to get 100K. But, like,
of course.
We're not.
Who knows? Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, it's 14.
And then I think, there's that, but then also like looking at the amount of people backing. And sometimes I look at the amount of people who've backed and I go, every one of them will get to play the board game I made. That's like, 500 people or whatever that are going to be taking that board game home.
Something that someone did was, I didn't think about this. I was talking to someone about this, and they were like, how many players is the board game? And I was like, oh, it's like 2 to 5 is what we recommend. And they took, I forget how many backers we had at that moment, but they were like, oh, crazy, like 1,500. And I was like, no. I said we had 300 backers or whatever it was. And they were like, yeah, that's how many board games, but how many people playing?
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's 2 to 5.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You're like,
go,
oh, yeah, shit, of course.
Fuck,
Yeah.
That's right.
They're not solo playing it, they're playing it with their mates.
They're playing it with friends. It's truly unbelievable.
If you're like me, you might, get the Garfield plushie out and you might play your board game with that. It's easier when you're doing it with Monopoly, I think.
But God, it's crazy. Like again, can't thank everybody who's pledged and donated.
I'm normal, by the way.
We know. No one ever.
You all know I'm normal,
Bro,
right?
I know you're
Yeah, I
normal.
know.
And I've always been normal.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, dude. It's
Yeah.
okay. Everybody plays board. As a kid, I had the Pokemon trading card game, and I just bought heaps of the little shiny tokens. You know, it came with little like glass beads that you would put on to like I don't know what they indicated.
I remember them, yeah.
Because I never really played the game. I just bought heaps of the beads because I just loved holding them.
Friend of the show, Hayden, freaking loves the digital card game.
Oh, really? Yeah, I don't care for the card game. I care for the beads.
Yeah. You're there for beads.
I'm in it for beads.
That's fair.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I used to, very occasionally would play like, Magic the Gathering kind of stuff like that. But again, it was like, you just don't.
I didn't know you played Magic the
Didn't have too
Gathering.
many people to play with. So yeah, froth me Magic the Gathering. What I don't like about it is the weirdly, I don't like the deck building.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's interesting.
I like
yeah.
having the deck and then doing what I can. You know what I mean?
I think there's something because both you and Joel Dusha both kind of like playing Magic the Gathering, and maybe you do too, Adam. I don't know.
No.
But it's this. It always feels
No, I
as an
hate
outside
it.
observer like this cliff you could both fall off.
Oh,
Yeah.
Anytime it
brother,
comes up,
it is.
you get this glint in your eyes, and I'm like, I gotta protect. It's like you're about to become werewolves.
Yeah, dude.
I gotta chain my boys down.
Yeah, you need to.
I can't let it take them over.
Recently, within I think within the year, I want to say they had like it almost looked like Mouse Guard.
Oh, interesting.
They teamed up with I forget who it was, but it was just like anthropomorphic little critters, and I'm a sucker.
Yeah, dude,
For
that
an
is your
anthropomorphic
Oh my
Phew.
lord!
Oh,
We want to
no.
play. You know what I'm actually.
Kibble for Joel Zammit.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
You know what I'm
dude.
kind of looking forward to when we can play a board game that isn't Jarren's
Yes,
Outpost.
dude.
Yes, I'm going away this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to playing some of the board games that aren't this
Absolutely.
our game.
Yeah.
As much as fun it is.
Well,
Don't
and
get me wrong.
again, you know,
I
did an interview on the ABC recently.
that was crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which was insane for me to do. But as part of that, they were like, "You're still enjoying the game," and I was like, "I am." Hundreds and hundreds of playtests in, I'm still having a great time playing this board game, which is crazy. Like, I'm excited to play new board games, but if you were like, Jackson, we need to playtest this, I'd be like, okay, but I'll get into it. You know
I
what
like
I
it when
mean?
I win.
Yeah, me too. Well, we thought today what we would talk about is so one of the main aspects, I think the sort of like the cornerstones, I suppose you could say, of the Jarren's Outpost board game is this idea of a kind of screwing over your friends, right?
Yes.
Of like backstabbings, betrayals, because that
Yeah.
was a huge part of what made Jarren's Outpost the campaign great, and we were like, well, we got to translate that to the board game. But that's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
It's a delicate line to walk.
Yeah,
So I
and
thought, yeah, today we talk about how do you walk that line? How do you make a game that's mean but not too mean?
Because for the longest time, I think I was probably the most resistant to this.
Yeah.
Because I
Really,
kept,
I don't remember that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's and like there's not really a problem with it, but I think that's like a lot of your mentality, even when it comes to like D&D in general, is you like a cohesiveness, which I think is fair enough.
I think it's cohesive, sure, but I think it's like again, maybe your youngest sibling.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
Hey,
true.
keep the peace.
Yeah.
Chill. Everyone chill.
Yeah,
I
like,
get-
Comes
not
from
fight.
that.
Yeah.
Kind of like a version of that I get typically, which is like I don't mind, like Jarren's Outpost is kind of like the perfect level of competition.
Bless you. Like you, Jackson.
Yeah.
Jarren's Outpost is for those of you only listening to this, he just gave me a standing ovation. Jarren's Outpost is kind of like the perfect level of competition that I'm comfortable with in a board game, where yes, we are competing with each other to see who gets the highest score, but we're not directly fighting each other. Like a game like Risk stresses me the fuck out.
I've never played Risk in my life.
It's a stressful
I
game.
want
You'd
to.
hate it.
I played Risk only once at like a getaway with a bunch of friends that I don't really see anymore. And I think it was possibly the worst way to be introduced to Risk because I was like on the outside of this friendship group too.
Oh,
and I was
that
just like,
rules.
I don't know what's going on. And then I don't know, I was probably doing something stupid by being like,
You're
trying
like-
to make deals and be like, hey, you want to become best friends with Uruguay or whatever? Come on through.
Making deals.
I
Wheeling
think,
and dealing and risk.
yeah, I don't know. I had a bad time.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, so what I mean to say is like, not the competition, but I guess it's like, I always use like Everdell because it's the one of the most recent in my mind. There's like a card you can play, which is like the Fool, which will like, you can play it into someone else's village. And like, so Everdell, the whole thing is like, it's, you're building a city and you have like, say, 15 cards maximum is your city.
Yeah.
And that includes people and buildings.
So is it like Dominion? It's like a card building.
I haven't played Dominion. I've watched you play Dominion, but I haven't actually played it.
Is Everdell then all cards?
And worker placement. So it's worker placement and cards.
Okay.
kind of like if you imagine viticulture, but if at the same time you had like a deck that you were
It's
building.
been so long, I actually don't remember how to play viticulture.
So it's like,
anyway,
Yeah.
keep going.
And so like 15 like slots basically for what you have, and there's a one card in it which is called the Fool, and you can play it in someone else's town basically, which will not only take up a slot, it is also worth less points, or like even negative points or 0 points.
Right.
And it's quite mean. And I know if I get it, I will play it. And the thing is, I often play it with, say, my wonderful wife.
My wife.
or some other friends, and I'm like, I know I could play this.
Yeah.
Because, again, I'm that kind of piece of shit that I'm like, well, I want to win.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And
It's,
that's like that
very
strategy
true.
brain kicks in, and I'm like, well, this makes sense to win, so I'm going to win. I'm sorry, and I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah,
because I
that's
don't want to
very
be
fair.
too mean.
It's, and I assume Joel Zammit, as a man who has a brain for board games specifically, I imagine this is a consideration that you have to have very often. But it is funny when you're playing with people that you love, and it's a competitive game, especially if it's kind of a vicious competitive game, where you're making that move, and the move is essentially you saying, hey, I love you very much.
Yeah,
But not only I'm going to beat you right now,
yeah.
but not only am I going to beat you, I'm going to crush you. I'm going to crush you into the dirt.
I'm about to.
And then I'm going to take your resources and I'm going to use them to crush your sister.
Oh yeah, dude.
Or whoever,
Yeah.
if you're playing with family members.
But
that sort of
but
thing.
it's very funny because I remember the one. I think I've played Everdell maybe 2 times, and I remember getting the Fool and being like, "Oh, I cannot wait to put him in someone." Like that was the most exciting moment for me.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, "Who's gonna get the Fool?"
And again, it's great because again, in my head, it hits that kind of like,
Yeah.
But I also know I'm like, no, I'm too mean because I've already got the reputation of like mostly in the friendship groups of like already winning, and it just feels like more of a dick move on my behalf.
Yeah,
you know?
you are.
It does feel like
it is
you're-
negatively
yeah,
weighted
But then
against
you're
you.
going
you're-
without this. Why did you need to do this? You piece of, I'm
Why
like,
are you
"Oh,
fucking me? You're going to win.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
For sure.
And
We
so, yeah.
know you're going to win.
Yeah.
We don't know that for sure. Like, yes, we do. I'm like, So when it came to like, how to directly involve and like fuck over your other players with this game, again, a lot of me was very much being more resistant. I mean, more like restraint and pulling it back because I kept imagining
For when we playtest, saving us from the embarrassment of losing handily to you and you're fucking us.
Yeah. So sort of things like stealing from other players, or from like attacking other players, or from like this item might make you drop something, or this take it off you, or this whatever. And so I was very resistant to that because like all I kept remembering was that one player, and again we all maybe know this person, and we all maybe either are still friends with this person,
or
maybe not
dread
anymore.
playing board games
Or
with this
dread,
person,
because they take it to heart, and they get real stroppy, and they get real shitty. And I guess like you can't help but when you're playing these kind of games, or even any kind of board games, it's like because like I think it's a weird thing where like trying to remember like back in like high school times, like when you play something like Magic the Gathering. Actually, I can remember like having this one deck. I think it's called like the Slivers deck, and it was like a cunty deck. Like it was the worst deck to play with because you're like, all right, cool. All my creatures now they go +1/+1. Okay, and now they're flying and they have trample and they can teleport and they're all wizards. And they think you're a big piss baby.
That's so funny.
Anyway, I win.
Yeah.
And like playing that against someone and like and they were a good friend, and I'm like they got stroppy.
Absolutely. I've known that guy. I've played with that guy.
And I kept just thinking, like, I don't want to kill friendships.
Yeah.
My God.
But then, there's this piece of advice. It's writing advice, but I forget who it may be. Stephen King.
Probably me.
Probably Adam, actually. My good friend Adam gave me this piece of advice.
Oh, yeah.
Where he was like,
I'm often confused. My writing is often confused with Stephen King.
Yeah. That's true. You're often writing about
We're
writers.
both high on cocaine.
But whoever this writer was, they were like, don't write for the person that's going to hate your book. They're like, write for the hypothetical person for whom your book is going to hit them in the exact perfect place. And so I think I've always had that mentality with our board game where I'm like, yes, that guy is out there, but he's not my ideal player. If he's getting stroppy, that's his business. It's got nothing to do with me. My ideal player is the person who gets fucked over in this game and goes, man, that's awesome. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Maybe I fuck over someone next.
Oh, that's the way I can fuck you over? Okay.
Sick. Yeah, good. I'm going to do that then.
Yeah, so it's but I get it, because also that guy will probably play this game. Just statistically. So it is that fine line to walk. And I like to think, even though I'm like, whatever, screw that guy, that still the game is designed in such a way that the screwing over that does happen is it's less likely to make that guy furious.
Yeah, I think we've
that's the balance.
Now had that kind of like really fine line, especially when it's like cool quests are pretty quick to achieve. And so they're kind of, these quests, we want them to kind of be able to churn through them so that, hey, if someone beats you to the punch, that sucks, next one.
You got another option.
So, if someone steals the item that you were going to do or the person you were going to do and they did it instead of you, you're like, it's fine. But ultimately, maybe you've lost... you didn't get the point, but now it's like, those extra, maybe 2 turns. You're like, well, that's only 2 turns.
All you're losing is a little bit of progress.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where I feel.
I think there's a little bit as well of like do you remember when you're a kid? And this is something that, going back to a much earlier topic of talking about how I am old compared to some people. But do you remember back in the day, you'd go over to a friend's house and you'd play Guitar Hero, and you didn't have Guitar Hero, they had Guitar Hero, so they were really good, you were not so good. And it was very apparent.
I remember. I have this experience too, yes.
I think that, and I hope the nature that our board game can only really be played with multiple people, I hope that kind of negates this, because I think a lot of the fucking over that happens to another player, there is obviously the location, the Surefoot School for Wayward Children, which has the very obvious and very designed effect of you can steal from another player. Aside from that, a lot of the other items and abilities that fuck over other players are the sort of thing that you really you need to be a bit good or know a little bit about the game before you can start really thinking about and playing with. Because I believe, a new time player, something like the loot, which can bring an NPC to you, you can use that to take an NPC from a backpack from someone else.
No. Not a stealing.
There are items that let you do things like that.
Yeah, sure.
I think, with the stretch goals, I think we've added some NPCs and stuff where you can also steal from other players.
Yeah.
Then perhaps the spellbook, which allows you to imitate something that is in someone else's backpack.
Yeah, sure.
And then using the spellbook to undercut someone like that is... I wouldn't describe it as high-level play, but it's not something that you might necessarily think of.
Well, I think the way the board
Yeah.
game is designed, and this happened to us through playtesting quite a bit, and then when we added the new stuff, you discover these weird combinations as well, where there's a lot of new tech unlocked kind of moments. For example, being because is it the grappling hook lets you move to any location?
Yeah, it's grab an item or move to any location.
Yeah, so with that, you're like, I could use the blank spellbook as the grappling hook to move myself to someone else's location to drop off this item at their, whoever's in their backpack to kind of still use it. And that is a high level. But so, there is some level of once you get to learn the game more, you're like, oh, wait, I can do this. Oh, wait, I can do that. Yeah.
And I bring that up to say, I think something that was frustrating back in the day of not being as good at the game as the person who owned the game. Something frustrating about that is if you were just on a similar playing level, it wouldn't be such a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the other player fucking mechanics are kind of require a higher level of skill, and if everyone is at that higher level of skill, then it feels better, I think. Because I could very easily imagine someone getting a bit frustrated at the idea of like, oh, I didn't realize that I could do that. I could use the blank spell book as the grappling hook to move over here, and I hadn't thought of that. But because it's like a multiple person, I forget where I was going with this. God damn it.
Well, is it the kind of idea that when somebody does that to you, you go, oh, I can do that? You know what I mean? That's what I think. Like, I'm playing a game with someone, I've not played the game before. Somebody does that to me. I go, oh, I can do that to them. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. I see where this is at.
Oh, you've shown me that that's a strategy I can use.
Cool.
You know what I mean? And it's funny to think about with this game that very early on, because if you remember, and we've spoken about this before, initially you had your own quests, or you just shared a quest with the person to your left.
Yes.
And when that happened, the reason we changed that is we were like, oh, there are players that aren't interacting in like a 4-player game. And then making the decision that everybody has access to or is required to complete all the quests that they affect everybody. That was another moment of like, oh, now you're truly fucking people over.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because I think when it was like, oh, just the person to your left you're sharing it with, we had this idea of like, well, you know, you might have a quest that requires Laura Fillmore over here, you know, between these two people and between those two people. So you're kind of fucking each other over, but it wasn't so direct. You know what I mean? You weren't trying to complete the same quest.
I think it was to try and encourage direct competition.
Yeah.
Because then if you and I are sharing a quest where, I mean, like, you maybe have that quest over there, but it feels, everyone has two quests, but it feels way more in direct competition when we're both looking at this one quest being like, only one of us is getting it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so because initially it was that, you know, one person, you had your solo quest, which was like, it was it was fun, it was fine.
Yeah.
But it honestly felt like I was playing a single player game and my friends were also in the same vicinity.
Yeah.
God, I remember solo quests.
Yeah, and it just felt a little bit like,
it just wasn't as
and also,
exciting.
like, the solo quest didn't really, like, double up. So
Yeah.
they there was no, like, you know, you needed, like, this particular item and NPC. Usually, the other person did not.
Yeah.
And it was very much like, I'm single track, single-mindedly doing this one thing. And it was like,
Yeah.
We realized that more important, I think, what we realized is more important than we both need this item is, oh, he's going for that item.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which, playing open with the quests, everyone having the same quests and everyone knowing what someone could be going to.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that causes more direct competition than being like, oh, is Zammit going to the outpost?
Yeah.
Is he going to get an item from the outpost?
Yeah, what's he looking for?
Yeah. And so there was like, you know, from that to then being like, all right, we'll share with the person to your left.
Yeah.
And so that was like, cool. Well, then everyone is sharing. Like, everyone's got two quests. So that, like, you know, if you're a combat character or more of a fetch character, you can kind of like, well, hopefully just by pure RNG, maybe you're going to get one that's going to benefit you. And then it was like, oh, yeah, cool. And then because, you know, this is three of us.
Yeah.
We kept doing a lot of 3-player games. But then it's like, you know, okay, well, what about we do 4 players or 5 players? And then you're like, yeah, cool. So, yeah, me and you were interacting. Me and you were interacting. But then me and you, well,
not really.
I am never really doing anything. And then we had this, like, you know, moment of like, okay, well, in that situation, do you either A, have to, how do you include them into, like, you know, direct competition? Or is like, or B, do you go, okay, is there something we can do to be like, well, I'm in direct competition with these guys, but maybe you and I are friends.
Yes, yeah.
You and I are friends, and you and I. And so, you know, we kind of toyed around with that for a little bit, but ultimately we fell to the side of like, no, well, why don't everyone can do all the quests?
Absolutely. It is funny to think that there was a period of time where we were like, maybe this game will involve a kind of wheeling and dealing aspect of like being able to make deals with other people or whatever. And I mean, obviously there's nothing in the rules that explicitly forbids that. If you in the game have the gold nugget and the person opposite you has a, I don't know, silver steel and you're like, hey, trade me. And they say, yes, you can or whatever. It's your game.
Look, I would argue make that explicit before the game starts.
Yes,
like with the rules, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Because again, it's the kind of stuff where you can be like, what the fuck? You know, then again, we never intended for trade to happen randomly like that. And like, I haven't played tested it.
We had rules for trade back in the day. Do you remember?
I think we had rules for stealing off each other.
Yeah. Oh, that as well. Yeah. But we also had rules for trade.
Did we?
Yeah.
I do not remember that.
You had to be. I remember this. You had to be on the same square. And then if both players were willing, instead of a steal, which could also happen, and you also had to be on the same square.
Yeah.
But instead, I think we were even like I think we got to the point where we were like, where in the order of operations, where does trading with another player come in?
That's crazy.
But I remember we were like, you have to be on the same square. At the very least, we agreed that much.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I think we also, because you specifically love this as a concept, and I know why you love it as a concept, because you...
snake.
Yeah,
Snake in the grass, baby.
You always pay last.
Yeah.
In any game, you always pay last. And you loved that it could be like I'll make you this deal today, and then tomorrow you do this thing for me.
Yeah.
But then
I'll
obviously
gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today kind of bullshit.
But in the rules, we specifically, because you wanted to write it like this, you specifically stated, but you don't have to keep to that.
Yes, yeah. Well, and, part of that, I think...
you will never honor an agreement.
Of course not. Which is stupid,
never.
because it means nobody would ever make the trade with me. But, I think part of this came from the fact that we wanted to adapt Jarren's Outpost, which was a game about lying and betraying each other and stabbing each other in the back, and we wanted to turn that into the board game.
100%.
That felt like a direct translation, but then basically it was this like, well, one, that's not the game we're making, and two, it has to be a board game. You know what I mean? Like,
it's like, and you can make, you can party games, board games, those kind of stuff that require those hidden roles, those that type things. There's many that are successful. But it was kind of like, if we're doing that, how do you add that to the pre-existing game we already have?
Yeah.
And okay, we've got to really figure that one out. And so we decided, instead of going down the wheeling and dealing, we were like, all right, everyone is like, all the quests are available, which then also enabled us to go, right, well, what if we thought about multiple ways of finishing a quest?
Yeah.
Because, say, for example, we was like, all right, cool, Night of the Town or whatever, which is like, all right, take Laura Fillmore to one of the trading posts, or to Little O's restaurant, right?
Yeah.
And that was the quest. And that was it.
Yeah.
And you only had one way of doing it. So the moment someone picked someone up, you're like, nah.
Yeah, well, I'm not doing that one. Yeah.
And so it was just
Now
kind of like,
you can take
how
Little
about-
O's restaurant to Laura Fillmore.
Exactly. And so we're like, all right, well, what about, okay, we'll chuck Gregor in the mix, and then take them to either this place, and then like a lot of the quests will have the all right, this person or this person to this location or this item.
Yeah.
And so we tried to be like, all right, let's have multiple ways of trying to do this quest.
Yeah.
And that is also another way you can screw over your
absolutely. And
other player in a lot more of a fairer way.
For sure. And it's this funny thing where like it feels like, oh, you've opened it up to everyone, like it's not, but actually because you're often so, I mean, for me anyway, I'm so locked into like, I'm gonna get groggy at a Little's restaurant.
Yeah.
I don't notice that, say, you happen to have Laura Fillmore in your backpack and you're heading for I don't know, somewhere else on the board, and then you're like, oh, I've completed the quest, and I'm like, fuck.
What damn?
How did he do it? Oh, right, of course. And then it's also funny, I think
That's why barbarian mode rules.
yeah, well, that's true. Although having said that,
and yet you really, really only won when you didn't
yeah,
go full
you said it when you
barbarian.
rinsed us, it was by going
Not barbarian.
Yeah,
doing
but I've
quests.
got, if you count all
Yeah.
of the quest points I've ever, prestige points I've ever accomplished.
Yeah, true.
I've accomplished way more prestige points
He's right.
doing barbarian mode. Yeah,
He's
He's right,
He's
dude.
very
He's got us there. There are a couple of things that were very late additions in terms of, and there were actually stuff that we were like, let's not do it, and then I sort of very close to the end of the game, we were like, whatever. Like, the one I'm thinking of is it being able to attack each other.
Yeah.
So that was a thing that we had early on, but we were like, well, you never really. It's so rare to encounter one another. And this was also back when everybody was quite slow.
Yeah, quite slow, and you had defense.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like a very complicated and kind of messy thing to attack someone. We were like, eh. And then it got to, we refine the game, and it became this very playable, very quick sort of thing that it is now. And I remember you were doing some Photoshop thing for an item card or something, and you're just like, why not? Like, what's the problem with it?
Yeah, why are we restricting everybody?
Yeah,
like,
that's the kind of stuff. Like,
fair enough. The thing we've been doing is really like, making sure that like we were freeing people up to kind of do whatever we want. Like initially we had like the blank spell book being like a one and done. You use it once, it's out of the game for that whole game. You basically tear it up right away.
Yeah.
And it's like, why?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you could if you wanted to, like, sure, go to Greg Piss's warehouse to look through the item decks. Like you use it. It goes to the item deck. You go to Greg Piss's warehouse. You roll. You pass the skill check, say. You can get it again. Well, whoop-de-doo, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
But the thing is, sure, then you can do that and keep doing that, but you've still taken the time to go and do that.
For sure.
Which is like, someone else is now doing other things in a different way.
Yeah.
And so to me, it was kind of like, well, why restrict someone? If someone wants to play like that, that's fine.
Yeah.
And like same thing with, I think it was like the Prestige, right? So with NPCs worth Prestige, and it was just like, cool. Well, because the tavern, you'll always have like 4 players there, and we used to, it's like, it's still, it's like people in the tavern are friendly.
Yeah.
So if they're hostile, worth points, and you go there and then you attack them, you get the upper hand because like you can land there, next turn attack, so you don't get attacked, so you get the upper hand. And so initially it was like, well, people in the tavern aren't worth Prestige.
Yeah.
And then you're like, why?
Yeah, exactly.
like
why
we have
not?
enough NPC that they churn through. And if you wanted to counteract that, you can go in there, pick them up, drop them off, whatever, and you can do that. But so, like, if you want to do that and like gear yourself up and just camp in the tavern
and just beat the shit out of whoever's there,
beat the shit out of every single one.
And as I explained, Barbarian mode is pretty much the only way to play the game.
Exactly.
It's the optimal meta. Yeah.
And so it's like, well, if you want to do that, great. You need to rely on a lot of luck.
Yeah.
Like you need to rely on A, you're hitting everyone that you're hitting, and B, that the people who are in the tavern are worth Prestige.
Yeah.
And that you defeat them before the end of the day, because if not, they will go to the bottom of the deck anyway. So it's like, why restrict someone?
And I think there's this funny thing where for attacking people in the tavern, we were like, it seems like it's an easy way to farm victory points, and there's no real downside. But I think a downside that we kind of didn't really think about until late in the game is just like, is it boring? You know what I mean? And I think it kind of is sometimes boring to just go to the tavern and wait. You're not really engaging with the game. And then another thing with attacking each other, being able to damage each other, it doesn't really come up.
No.
Like, you can do it.
Why?
But why would you? And most of the time, it's pretty incidental if you decide to do it, which I think is the perfect place for a mechanic like that.
Yeah.
You could use it if circumstantially you've ended up on the same spot because you need to be on the same location, which is also kind of a rarity. The same spot as another player, and they're going for a quest you're going for, and they don't have much health left, and they will defeat this person or pick up the item, whatever, in the next turn, but you could kill them. Then maybe it might be worthwhile pursuing it as a strategy.
It requires basically
Yeah.
you have to. I mean, like you have to land on the same square. You have to land on this. You for whatever reason you need to have an attack.
Yeah.
and you need to have it prepped for where a player who is also moving is going to be. So you not knowing where they're going to be necessarily, you have to kind of pre know where they're going to be. You have to feel confident to attack, obviously, which isn't always, even for the combat characters, it's not always a given that you're going to feel like, I definitely could, I definitely could
defeat them this turn or whatever,
You do also, need to, I mean, like, you don't need to be able to defeat them. Maybe just a bit of damage is enough to kind of do what you want to do, like have the effect you want. Maybe you just want them to drop an item or something like that. And then also, which then would maybe require you to be sharing a quest, or
there's got to be some reason for you to do it in the first place.
It's such a hefty list of things that need to tick boxes,
but
which
then,
need to happen.
kind of on the flip side, why not give people this as a tool in their arsenal?
Yeah.
Like, that's why it is in the game as a thing you can do, because it's like, circumstantially, you're probably not going to do it. But
if you want.
If you've come up with some strategy that involves doing it, like, we're not going to say no. Like, why not?
I think a huge part of the game is those little incidental things along the way where you're planning on doing some other thing. Maybe you're going to go pick up Knock Knock.
Yeah.
But on the way, you're like, I've got a free interact.
Yeah.
I don't need this item, but who knows? Maybe I'll,
Yeah, and it's the same thing. Like, if you've got, like, I think it's Leo Shadow has, like, the dash with a damage in the middle. And you're like, well, I just happened to be passing by Adam, say, do I deal the damage to the NPC?
Something you literally have described happening to me by Joel Zammit.
You're like, I'm going around. I don't really want to hurt the NPC.
Yeah.
I'll hurt my good friend Adam.
And then it's just like it's an extra little bit of fuck you. It's a little bit of player interaction.
Yeah.
It's fun. Like I think
and so for me, it's like in the rule book, it'll be like PvP. It's like, look, it's possible. Follow the same rules as you do if you're attacking somebody, as in like they consider them friendly until like when you attack them, you deal your damage. If they're not defeated, they deal their damage. So if they're holding weapons, you better believe
you could be in real trouble.
And kind of like just. I guess at the start of the game, be like, yeah, cool. This is what PvP is enabled.
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of the way I look at it. To be like, hey, is everyone happy to punch on? You're like, yeah,
all right, great,
cool.
And
because again, you're right, as Adam is saying. It is hard to make it like, okay, cool, we are doing this.
Yeah.
And like, really going like a fine, like, yep, I am aiming to attack somebody.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of the characters can just zip away.
Yeah.
I often just don't think about it. Like I play Knock Knock Heaps, who has that free just 1 point of damage. And don't think I've literally...
Yes.
I literally don't think I've ever passed by a player and been like, how many hit points do you have really quickly? Because that 1 hit point, it could make you lose an item.
Absolutely. And it's also funny to imagine, and again, there's a real like freedom, I think, in this game to play however you want. And I love that this is part of it. That if you theoretically wanted to, you could be like, I'm Leo Shadow, and I'm going to get all of the daggers in the game, which I can discard for a damage. And then I'm just going to seek out someone and kill them. You can do that. That's fine. Like, that's the kind of freedom. In a really weird way, I think the Jarren's Outpost board game has this like open world life sim vibe to it, and that you can just do what you like, sort of, if you want. It might not help you win the game, but like it's an option, and it is the kind of thing that initially we were like,
didn't we also have like beating a player gave you prestige?
I think early on
it was something we discussed. There was kind of stuff like that as well, like the things you discussed really early, like if you get defeated, what's the is there a cool, you lose your items, you whatever, you lose the rest of your turns, but do you lose a prestige? And you're like,
I think that was when having the ability to hurt someone was a lot harder as well, because and we've spoken about this. Movement used to be like a lot simpler, or there used to be a lot
like,
fewer.
So move forward, that was it. Like that was left, right, that was it. So
a lot of most characters now have like a move and attack sort of ability.
They'll have something in there that they can use to do damage and stuff.
So it's a lot easier to cause a player damage. But back when we were considering prestige,
you would have to be like you'd like land on the location.
It was really not a guarantee.
They're not going to move on their turn, and then on your next turn do an attack.
I do, because again, you try and think of like, because again, we mentioned stealing as an option before, because like now it's like you can go from like one location, and now they think there's like an NPC and some stuff as well. So it's like, cool, we've got some options there if you want to steal. But like initially, like if you landed on the same character, like same space, and then you would roll, and then you're like, oh cool, like I think it was a skill check. And if you could pass a skill check, well, you can steal back. You could steal from them. And then the horrible thing happened. Which was like, cool.
Steal for steal for steal for steal.
And it comes down to, this is boring.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're like, you kind of want, all right, I've been stolen, like, stolen from, okay, move on. But then you're up against a player who's like, no.
Well, I need that item,
no, give
so
it back.
Steal it back.
And I'll steal it back, and I did so good. And you're like, well, I want it. I'm stealing it back. Okay, well, I want it. And it was just... It was not fun.
It was
and
very
so you're like, okay, that
frustrating.
sucked. How do you, how do you go about doing this differently?
And then now, I love the surefire. I love going to that location and you like you steal from somebody else, and then you're like, am I going to move on, or am I just going to keep robbing people?
And you're like, yeah, good. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jackson.
Yeah,
awesome.
that rules for me.
Do you remember when, I forget what location it was, and I was championing this for ages and we decided against it. One of the other, it was another one of the Halfling family locations.
Oh, yeah, probably the Quiet Knife Jewels.
Where it was like, deal a damage to somebody.
Yes.
Instead of stealing. I was like, oh, go on there and deal a damage. And then we were like, well, somebody could just farm someone else. Theoretically. And then I think it was also this thing of like, well... because there's not really much to be gained from killing somebody or just dealing damage to a PC, and then to go there and deal damage to an NPC, it's kind of boring, so we just decided against it.
Yeah, because it was the kind of like, all right, you deal damage to a player character. Like, what's the point? Deal damage to like, an NPC or a player character. And like, so it's like, cool. But then the idea being like narrative would be like, oh, I'm going there and I'm hiring.
Hiring an assassin or whatever.
Getting a hit or whatever. And like, so do you do it like, is it a roll with a skill check? Is it just like, is it just an interact? Like, that kind of stuff. And you can sit there and be like, from like, any kind of defeat quest. You're like, okay, attack.
Yeah.
And there are, players on the board that are just worth prestige as well. Or NPCs on the board.
So you
And
can
you,
kind of like, it was like, oh, you just do it without a risk, really. Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah,
is that fun? Because you got to, it's like that weird thing of like, what's the meta? Like, what's the quickest way of like, the most mana points versus like, because there are people who want to like, what's the optimal strategy?
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh yeah, cool. Well, if I just go to this one place and all I spend my turns doing is like, in a day I can do 4 damage anywhere around the board, and that's cool because some quests will be like, defeat X many, like like a fort guard or this or that.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, well, I'll just wait there. When I'm not doing that, I'll just like chip away at anyone worth a point.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I guess you could.
You could, but like, is that
suck
fun?
as a person.
Yeah, is that like a fun time for everybody?
Like, do we want that in there?
Yeah.
But instead, we were like, okay, what else can it do? And so we decided, I think it's another sort of transport, which is like, go to the Jarren's Outpost.
Jarren's Outpost, which is very fun. It's a cool little addition.
I feel like there's been a few times where it's been especially, it's when it's been right next to Jarren's Outpost for some funny reason.
Yeah.
But there's been a few times now where I've been like, oh, actually, it's really useful. Even though it is right next to Jarren's Outpost, it's really useful that it's there because I've maybe got to move and interact with something like that.
Yeah,
so I move, and then it only gives me one extra movement. But
somehow
it's
so helpful. It can be the difference.
Very helpful sometimes. That's what I like about because we again did the sewers. We've done the Quiet Knife Jewelers. The getting around the board. That was also like another issue like back in the day.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, how do you move around everywhere? And like, and it was
especially when in the early days there was the exploration phase.
Yes.
God,
Where it would be like, well, because it's so hard for anybody to get around the board.
Is this something that's already been discussed?
Yeah, I think I forget what episode we talked about it in. But yeah, it was like that corner of the board, everything's still flipped over because nobody could ever get there. So it was like, well, what's kind of the point? Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it was like, I like that it's even though if you're maybe not a zippy character, you can still have like some transport around the
playing
board.
face down is lasted so long that we had it still existed when we first did Repopulation.
Really?
When we first did Repopulation, there was a huge debate. We were like, we had no idea which one was better, playing face down when you repopulated or playing face up when you repopulated.
That's so
I remember
interesting.
that debate.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
Another way that we thought about screwing over each other that we then again, it's funny, a lot of things were taken out of the game, and then once the game was more solidified, we were like, we could kind of like safely reintroduce them, was the idea of changing the way someone was facing. Or moving their movement cards around, because you pre-program your movement in the game, and so to have that in any way interrupted, especially early on in the game, was like horrendously debilitating. And I think again, the Quiet Knives Jeweler, when it was like, oh, let's not do damage, I think my next suggestion was like, well, maybe you can go there and maybe make someone rotate or whatever. And again, we were like, yeah, maybe not. But now we have a couple of like NPCs and stuff.
Like an NPC, I think we got either one or two, which is like, okay, cool. The idea is, and this is, I think, part of the stretch goal. The idea is that these characters, they are hostile.
Yeah.
And so to pick them up, because they'll have a discard ability, like a lot of like sort of items do. When you discard something will happen.
Yeah.
And these NPCs are like, cool, they are hostile. So if you pick them up, you're going to take damage, which to me kind of negates the other effect. And one of them is like, cool, pick them up, you take some damage, but then you could discard them. And I think one of them is like, another player cannot move from the location they're in for a turn. And another one is like, you push them back one.
Yes, yeah.
And so it's like pushing someone back one. Oh, that's so frustrating and annoying.
Oh, yeah.
It's not completely ruining their day. Maybe it is. But it costs you something.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And often, like, because I think some of it was like 3 damage, and one of them was like quite a lot. And it'll cost you enough damage that like you might lose a bag slot kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like okay, cool. Well, there's this trade-off here.
Yeah. And then with the other thing I think that changes your movement or does stuff with another player's movement, which is the medicinal herbs, which I think have been unlocked.
Yes.
Those make another player repeat their morning action. Now, that is annoying, but it also could be very beneficial, which I kind of like. It's actually given another player a 5th move. It's just did you do something useful in the morning? Kind of,
Yeah. What I like about that is like, you could do it for yourself. Like,
Yes,
'cause again,
yeah,
a lot
totally.
of like players, like say move and interact, like they move forward, interact, and if you want to do that again, you're like, sweet.
I take the medicinal herbs and I move forward and interact. Yeah.
And so I like that ability where you're like, this will kind of, screw over my opponents, but help me.
Yeah, and it's a very strategic one to be like, what has everyone else done in the morning? Where's, I know on, say, Zammit's next move, he needs to get away from the surgeon because he doesn't have much health left.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that? You're attacking him again?
It sucks to you.
It sucks for you. Now he's killed you. Like that's fun. I like that. But yeah, we tried to have this balance between annoying and fun. And I remember a lot of discussion. There was a thing we would say. It was almost like a catch cry. It was like, is this annoying or is this fun?
Yeah, and
sometimes it's hard to tell.
It's hard to kind of throw that needle as well, because I'm like, because we tried a bunch of different, okay, well, this NPC, because when you discard them, whatever, cool, you'll go left or go right, or you'll turn around or something like that, and we kind of was like, I don't know if it's fun or not.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we sort of fell on for a lot of them, and so kind of reduced it to only a couple. But yeah, there's this kind of thing of because again, when you're pre-programming, it can just really screw over someone's complete day.
Absolutely.
And I don't know.
And it's funny because
I think it did fuck, because I've only played, I think it's only been played against me, sorry, is what I meant to say. I think it's only been played against me once.
Yeah.
The medicinal herbs?
The medicinal herbs. I think it fucked me from memory.
Yeah.
Pretty
It
bad.
will. Oh, it will.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then it's fun. But yeah, some other characters we had, or some other sort of abilities, which was you can rotate someone 90 degrees or make them face the day, and you're like, And
again, but it's also this funny thing these days where a lot of the that's very annoying came when you had movements that didn't do anything, but we've really tried to balance the board out so that, because in the game you do get fucked over. You do, the quest you were halfway through doing gets done in the second round, and now you have 2 extra rounds where you've pre-programmed your movement and you got to figure out something else. So there is still and that's why we basically were like, we can reintroduce some of this, because it was like, well, now you play your first move, somebody fucks you over and rotates you on the board or makes you, whatever. You're like, well, I'll be able to figure something out.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That's the kind of how the game works these days.
Yeah. I think what I like, because again, when it comes to your movement stuff, I think it was knock knock, because again, she was very slow and she didn't have I think at one point she either didn't have a right turn, she didn't have she couldn't turn right or she couldn't go backwards, one of the two, whatever it was.
Funny.
And it was really slow and annoying, and you couldn't just do turn around and do a circle basically. And so we're one of her abilities, and very early on was just rotate 90 degrees.
Yeah.
And that was it. And even then we were just it was useful but kind of a bit boring.
Yeah.
And then it was the yes, Adam.
Sorry, I was doing this because I have no idea how to make this easy if it needs to be.
Yeah.
I got to pee really fucking badly.
Go piss, go.
Okay. I hope this isn't
That's
ruining
fine.
my
Go piss, go. Whatever.
I'll
People
keep-
piss all the time in the
Exactly,
podcast these
dude.
days.
It's fine, man. We talk a lot.
Yeah.
You
Whatever.
can't
We'll
control
hold down the fort while you piss. Relax.
So it was this 90 degrees, and then
Yeah.
we were like, okay, what if anyone could just move 90 degrees? The whole idea of resting and that kind of stuff, because it was either you could rest and it was you could heal yourself at one point.
Yeah.
And then it was or you could reorientate. And so that was 2 different actions.
That's right.
And it was only 90 degrees.
Yeah.
And then it was just why?
Yeah. And it's funny, I remember
Why?
being very, in a kind of way where I can't really remember what my problem was with it back in the day. I think I was just no, you pre-program your movement and you suffer for it or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was...
And Jackson, is that annoying or is
that fun? Yeah, exactly.
And so then it was okay, cool. Well, why don't we instead, we combine that. So it's you can rotate left or right 9 degrees and heal 1.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point of why don't we just face any direction?
Yeah, you
and
can just
heal
change
1?
your orientation and heal 1.
Because I think that also relies on again the because when you have stuff that so you screw over your other opponent, and the person who's being screwed over, you need something.
Yes, yeah. You need some kind of recourse to be
okay, either they've screwed me over, but they're suffering for it.
Yeah.
I.e., they've picked up something that harms them, but then it harms me.
Yeah.
Or it's well, I just got fucked over. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what can I do?
Yes,
What can I do?
absolutely.
And I think the ability to kind of all right,
Rotate on the
I know what
spot,
my next
yeah.
move is. I am losing this move. That's fine.
Yeah, but I can set myself up for the next round. Yeah, because I think, back in the day, before we had that ability, and as well, especially when your cards were just move left or whatever, is that if somebody screwed you over turn one,
Yeah.
you were like, literally the rest of my movement is worthless
You're like
now.
sick. Can't do shit.
Can't do shit. Okay.
Thanks.
I'm fucked over and it's not fun and I'm just frustrated or whatever.
Which is why I think even when it's like, you get beaten to the quest, it's like, cool. Even if you lose that point or in like, if you want to reorientate yourself in any way, ultimately you're only missing a turn.
Yeah, exactly.
Because like, cool, well, I know the next card, which is great because I know me and you are very guilty of this, Jack.
Yeah.
Which is like, well, I know I'm gonna move forward. These two things are gonna be interacts.
Yeah.
Or like an attack or whatever. So I don't care what I'm playing, so who cares?
Yeah, just put it down, doesn't
there,
matter.
it doesn't matter. And then the next one there.
Yeah.
And then like, shit.
Okay.
The thing I want to do is now I can't do.
Yeah.
Or like,
what the
okay,
hell
what
will
did
my
I put it
movement's
down?
gonna be? Oh fuck. Okay, I'll figure something out, dude. And it's funny as well, this the screwing over people thing. Also, and I think we've talked about this on another episode, but that helped us with that last turn slump where on the last turn of kind of some board games, you're just like, well, what do I do? Like, I'm not going to win. So how am I going to make it fun for myself? And having this idea of like, well, in that last turn, if you're not going to win, wreck someone else's day. That's when you're picking up the Rock of Whoops.
Yeah.
That's when you're picking up an NPC and discarding them so that your opponent doesn't get, win by 4 points instead of 2. So I think that's when you kind of tend to go ham. And like, it's a funny thing where you can screw over your opponents, but most of the time it is incidental.
Yeah.
Unless you're vindictive,
Yes. Which again, we've seen play, and I love it. I think that
too.
was a good turning point as well when we were
Yeah.
demoing. I mean, we mentioned it before, but
Yeah.
it was like, seeing someone who was just like, oh, cool, well, it's the last turn, and this person's attacking. I'm just going to, again, I'm going to camp on Greg Piss's warehouse, where every roll of the dice, I can, like, look through the item deck. And they were like, yep, Rock of Whoops, Rock of Whoops, Rock of Whoops. And they were just like, the other person just need to attack once and actually succeed. And they were like, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you
There's
don't.
a lot of that, I know.
love that.
Except from me, because I'm delightful and I would never try to hurt my friends.
course.
But I think the two of you really bully me in the in the last round. I said it as a joke, but I kind of am also being serious because I do notice that if I get to the last round and I've got a few free rounds or something like that, I'll be like, oh, I'll just sit here or whatever. I typically, because I'm such a beautiful person, I would
With a
never
kind
use
soul.
that
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Even though, there is obviously I absolutely could if I wanted to use that extra time.
That's what that time's for,
Yeah.
baby.
Either
the two of you
last day
love-
is like
Yeah.
how can I squeeze that 1 or 2 extra points,
Yeah.
or how can I ruin someone else's day?
Yeah, dude.
And that's the two things. If I can't squeeze 1 or 2 extra victory
Points,
like,
I'm
like,
screwing- I'm wrecking
all right.
someone's day.
How
Yeah.
quickly can I get to Greg Piss's warehouse? How quickly is that?
Yeah.
Where's that Rock of Whoops?
Yeah,
What are
yeah.
they going for? Are they attacking or are they doing skills?
Yeah. Oh, I'm heading straight to the Quiet Knives Jewelers, and I'm taking that,
But it
item
is
off
funny
them
because
before
I'm
they
such a
can-
good person that I do literally never think of that.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude.
good.
You should get
Handsome.
such a
I
good looking.
keep saying
It should be said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big dick.
Yeah. That was my next. You
fat hog.
Fat hog.
I think as well, because it is sort of integral to the DNA of the game, hopefully when you're playing this game, you know what it's like going in.
Yeah.
You sit down your friends and you say, hey, this is a game about getting victory points
And making you cry.
and making each other pissed off. You know how everybody says Monopoly wrecks friendships?
Yeah.
This game does that by design.
Monopoly doesn't wreck friendships because no one has a free 12 hours to play half a game of Monopoly.
That is true.
And again, and also like, look, Jared's Outpost. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, of course.
You can play very you can all be like
Respectfully.
Adam.
Yeah,
You can all
exactly.
be very
A
respectful.
model
You can all be-
citizen
Yeah.
And so because again,
of
it's,
Melbourne, not
Yeah.
not of Jared's
real life.
Outpost.
But yeah, because again, like, as you were saying, it was like a lot of the screwing over is incidental.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
Because you are getting into your own head. Like, all right, I go here, I go here, I go here. And then I get 1, 2. Cool, I can do 2 quests. Like, that's
Yeah.
sick.
Yeah.
And then you've done that one quest. Well, fuck you.
Yeah.
All right, at least I can do that. And you've done the other one.
Okay,
That's
fuck. Wasted day. What am I going to do instead? Where
Yeah.
am I going?
today is like round 2 and I have got nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's great. I love that going from like, cool, I planned that day.
Yeah.
I've got I got everything sorted. I'm going to be like, big dick swinging over here. Everyone's going to think I'm so good at that. I'm ruining it.
You're
Oh,
Macklemoreing
shit,
it.
oh,
You've wrecked,
shit,
you've
walking
wrecked
in.
my life. You know what, you big bitch,
Yeah.
you've wrecked my life.
And that's what I like about it as well, because you can be vindictive.
Yeah.
But you can also just not be, and also ruin someone's day.
Exactly. Like, that's kind of, it's
like,
extremely open-ended. You can truly play any way you like.
And it's like, it reminds me a little bit of that, like, Ticket to Ride, if you ever done, like, and like, you're trying to figure out your, which route are you going down? And then someone nonchalantly is like, no, I'll just go this here. And you're like, why'd you do that?
You're like, because
you
you're not.
You bitch.
Because you're not, you big bitch.
Is it because you hate me?
Yeah,
Do
is
you
that what's
hate me?
happening?
Like, why you like, I don't know, I had some cards I want to play. You don't even use it for a route? No.
Nah, I just like
So
putting
why
it
there?
down.
Yeah.
I don't know. I saw it. You've ruined my
I
life.
like the color blue.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Okay. Now my
Another
route,
option.
which was going to take 4 trains, is going to take 16.
Super good for me.
Yeah.
And that's what I get.
Yeah.
That's that kind of feeling of like,
Yeah. Because it's, it seems like a negative feeling. But
Yeah,
actually, it's
it's
what
fun.
makes board games fun.
yeah. And again, I've always loved this idea of like, okay, you've screwed me. That's great.
Yeah.
What have I got?
Yeah. What's my
what
next
is my
step?
genius? What is my stupid brain plan for me?
Yeah.
How can I get out of this one, idiot?
And I will follow the cards to the best of my
I
ability.
will do what I can, and that's what I like. It's just
Absolutely.
like-
And like you said, if you end up playing it with your friends and you're like, I don't want to do that, you just at the beginning of the game, you say, hey, let's be nice. What if we do a nice one, Or you say, hey, this is a game where I'm going to go Fuckamo Jones mode and everyone's going to suffer.
Like photos, you do a nice one and you do a silly one.
Yeah, exactly. You've got the option
like,
of both.
I do like. I think we've mentioned it on the stream as well, but like in some other episodes, like there's like again, we're talking about screwing over your friends. There's also let's have ways of countering this.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that like again, witnessing someone just completely ruin like one guy's day of like rock of whoops, I was like, cool, but you can't counter that.
Yeah.
In any way, shape, or form, and it became a little bit like, they're just taking the damage and nothing's happening. Like, what can you do? Because again, it's that kind of thing where, and this is where they like, the one is always a fail coming as well. Because like, you're going there, you're like, well, I attack, I don't need to roll, right? Because I just do it.
Yeah.
And I win. And it's a bit boring. And so you kind of like, in a similar vein, I was like, well, you need something to be able to counter out, even if it's not a tangible thing, like 100% right away. Something in which which now unlocked.
Yeah.
One of the items, which is the mirror, which is like to reflect whatever it happens to you, you can make it happen to another player.
Yeah.
And it's worded so poorly.
Yeah, exactly. It's worded so vaguely, that it can be interpreted however you want.
Like. And I initially was like, oh, I should clarify that.
Yeah.
And then Jackson grabbed my little hands and was like,
no.
no.
Put the
Your
keyboard and
itty
mouse
tiny
down,
hands.
my beautiful friend.
Hey, let's not what is it? Let's not make perfection get in the way of
Yeah,
done.
exactly.
It's already perfect.
It's finished. Let the people decide what it means. It's got nothing to do with us.
Exactly. You know what? Because again, someone damaging you, that's getting affected.
Yeah.
Getting a victory, that's getting affected.
Exactly. It's up to the table, baby.
I
It's
hate
up to
that.
the table. I love it. Personally, Adam, I love it.
And I went, you know what, Jackson? You are correct.
Yeah.
But he wasn't going to win anyway.
Done tootin', dude.
So it's like it's that lovely little balancing of like, sure, you can make as many different things to screw over your friends.
Yeah.
You also kind of counter that.
Yeah, of
And that
course.
is either going to be through, well, what's the cost of fucking over my friends?
Yeah.
And also, hey, as the friend getting fucked over,
What can I do?
what can I do to either A, stop that, or B, recover from it?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
so
And
I
I
think
like to think that the game is balanced very nicely in that aspect.
Yes.
Well, again, thank you so much, everybody who has already pledged. There's still time.
Oh, yeah.
Keep pledging. Do not stop.
It's crazy. Please do.
Again, we can't believe how many people have already pledged, but there's still a time of recording, I think 2 weeks to go. So still a chance if this particular episode has won you over, you can head to Kickstarter, search for Jarren's Outpost, and pledge today. And on that note, I've been Jackson Bailey.
I've been Joel Zammit.
I've been Adam Cannavale. If you've already backed but you haven't commented, comment.
Yeah, you got to comment, dude.
Also,
Yes, darling.
are we doing a push to get likes on
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's on Board Game Geek. You
Yeah.
can. It's annoying how they've framed things.
Yeah.
Because it's not a like, which every other place has.
Oh.
It's a fan.
Okay.
So you can fan
I'm
us
fanning
on
this.
you can fan us
Fan us
on
on
Board Game Geek, which this sounds terrible
That's
to
a
say.
baffling sentence.
You know when you give someone the thumbs up and you say, "Yeah, I'm a fan."
Exactly. Yeah. But
Yeah.
This is a love
I'm
heart.
a fan.
Though.
Oh,
This
it is love
beautiful
heart?
little heart.
I'm a fan.
I'm a fan.
I've not looked at the
Yeah.
icon properly. I'm going to be honest. You know how you have reading comprehension?
Yeah.
I have icon comprehension.
Somebody's posts a smiley and you go, what the hell are they saying to me?
Yeah.
Are they happy? Are they sad? I don't know.
It could be anything.
But yeah, if you head to Board Game Geek and you fan us,
Yes.
which looks like liking but isn't.
Yeah.
love heart.
Um,
So I think it's I think I once again I did not realize I wasn't familiar 100% with Board Game Geek. Anyway, we were talking to our the people who were helping us with the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, you should do like some social some social goals basically. And so it's kind of like we get people to be like, oh, if X has Y, we get Z. And I'm like, okay, cool. I hate social media.
Yeah.
I think a lot of social media now has gone down the toilet, and I'm like, what do we do with social media? I don't know. But,
Yeah.
And so, because in the past, people have been like, oh yeah, go to our Facebook page and give it a like. And once we get 1,000 likes or whatever, we'll, because again, getting 1,000 likes on Facebook for something seemed pretty easy. At one time. And so that was what I was going off. And so I was like, oh yeah, 1,000 likes on Board Game Geek? That should be easy, right? And then
Just hitting the like button.
I had a look around, like, oh, not many. Oh, we'll halve that to 500. And so I sent that out.
Yeah.
Then I got an email and being like, oh, it's like 1,000's a bit too much. Maybe aim for like 100, 150.
Yeah.
Oh, I see you've already done. Oh, well done, idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm
They
impatient.
called you an idiot?
No, I'm calling me an idiot. Help me, prove me right, wrong. I don't know.
Help us prove us right.
Yeah.
By going to BoardGameGeek.com, finding Jarren's Outpost, fanning it.
Yes.
And if we hit 500, we will add a new location to the game. And also, of those people who are fanning it, one of you will be allowed the privilege.
Randomly selected
to play the Jarren's Outpost board game with us on Tabletop Simulator with the three boys in the fucking room right now.
Am I allowed to encourage something that's against a website's
The law?
terms and
Yes.
conditions? No, even worse than the law.
Yeah.
A website's terms and conditions.
Oh, maybe not.
Okay.
Yeah, be careful.
Be
Easy
careful,
now.
easy.
Easy now.
Yeah.
We don't want to get shadow banned from
The internet.
the internet.
But yeah, once again, that's BoardGameGeek.com. Search for Jarren's Outpost. Fan us, which looks like liking, but is secretly fanning.
Yes.
We're trying to hit 500, and also you'll go in the running to play the Jarren's Outpost board game with the three of us boys on tabletopsimulator.com.
Tabletop simulator.
Fuck you both. And on that note, I've been Jackson Bailey.
I've been Adam. This is the second time
yeah,
we've done
I've been
this.
Joel.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap it up.
Yeah, well, you did a poor job.
I did my pee. I don't need to leave. I could stay for another hour.
Goodbye.
See ya.
No.